Good afternoon, my name is Gillian and I'm one of the support accountants here at FreeAgent. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is all about getting your costs into your FreeAgent account. A recording of today's webinar will be emailed out to you tomorrow, so don't worry if you miss any of the details today. And please feel free to ask any questions you might have throughout the webinar using the Q&A function. We'll try to answer as many as possible, but if there are some questions we don't get to by the end, please do get in touch and our lovely support team will be happy to help. I'll go over all the methods you can use to get in touch with us at the end of the webinar. Today, we're going to go over the different ways to record costs in your accounting records in FreeAgent. I'll be sure to go over some of the common questions that we get asked in support on this topic as well as we go through the webinar. I'm using a limited company FreeAgent account type today, but if you're a sole trader or a partnership, FreeAgent will also work well for you. No matter what business type, it's really important to get all of your costs into your FreeAgent account so that you can see the true position of the business. Most limited companies should be able to file their end of year accounts and corporation tax returns directly to Companies House and HMRC from the FreeAgent account. And most sole traders and some limited company directors will be able to file their self-assessments through FreeAgent as well. Whilst we don't support filing for partners or partnerships, FreeAgent can be used to keep on top of the record keeping, and then the figures from the account can be used to help populate the returns, which can then be filed directly to HMRC. After today's webinar, you'll hopefully feel more confident using FreeAgent and know how to make sure that all of your business costs are being reflected in the right way. Now, business costs can be paid for using various methods. Some may be paid for using a debit card or possibly a credit card, making an online payment from the business bank account, or possibly even from petty cash or your own personal funds. How a cost should be brought into FreeAgent depends on how and when the goods or service was paid for. The different payment methods I just mentioned are the how. The when is important because costs can be paid for at the time an item is purchased, or if credit is allowed by a supplier, they can be paid for after the item or service has been received. I'm going to show you how to deal with all the different scenarios, and then show you some reporting in FreeAgent so that you can clearly see the impact that the costs have on your reports in your FreeAgent account. This will provide some guidance on how you can check on the profit of the business and keep an eye on your cash flow. So let's get started. There are various sections in FreeAgent, and the day-to-day transactions are what are used to build your accounting records. So that FreeAgent knows what to put where within your accounting records, you would allocate items to different accounting categories. And we like to think of the accounting categories kind of like pots that are used to group things all together. You can see the various types of categories in FreeAgent by navigating to your business name at the top right, select Settings, and then Accounting Categories. Here you'll see that there are different types of accounting categories, including income, admin expense, cost of sales, capital and current assets, liabilities, and equity categories. These are all used to group things together. For example, to group sales transactions together under your income categories, your purchase of materials can be grouped together using cost of sales categories, and so on. You get the idea. Transactions are grouped in this way with the purpose of building the reports necessary for your business. Today, we'll look at some admin expense and cost of sales categories. These are more likely what you would use to record most of your costs. Admin expenses are your day-to-day running costs of the business, like postage, for example, and cost of sales are costs related directly to individual sales the business makes, like raw materials you've purchased to make goods. Accounting categories in FreeAgent have numbers, which are often referred to as nominal codes, but you don't really have to worry too much about that, as it's all taken care of automatically behind the scenes. You also don't need to remember these numbers, you'll be glad to know, as you're able to choose the category that's right for the transaction using the name of the category, rather than having to remember all the numbers. So I won't dwell too long on the nominal codes, but I'll just quickly explain that the numbers range from 1 to 999 in FreeAgent, with all the various category types having their own section of numbers within that. For example, the admin expenses range between 200 and 399. A brand new FreeAgent account has categories already set up like this, but you might find that you would like to add some additional categories that are more specific to your business, such as new income categories so that you can further analyse different types of sales, or new admin expense categories so that you can monitor how much is spent on a specific thing. To add a new category, you would click on Add New, and today we'll create a new admin expense category. For the description, you would enter what you would like the category to be called, and creatively, I'll call this one Test Admin Expense. I mentioned the nominal codes above, but just to clarify, FreeAgent will automatically allocate the next available nominal code for the new category from within the range of numbers that are available, so you don't have to worry too much about that. The reporting name tells FreeAgent where the category will sit in your accounts and tax returns, and all of these headings are preset by those reports. For our test category today, I'll just select advertising just because it's near the top. By ticking the box to say the category is allowable for tax, this means that you're allowed to deduct this cost from your company's income when you come to calculate the profit the company will pay tax on. We have some great guides on our website written by our Chief Accountant, Emily, that you may want to have a look at to help you decide if a specific cost is allowable for tax or not. If in doubt, we would always recommend that you double check with HMRC or your accountant. The auto VAT rate is the VAT rate that is usually applied to costs in this category. We'll touch on this a bit later in the webinar, but for our test category, I'll leave this as the standard rate. Once you've filled in all of the required details for your new category, you would click Create Category, and that's it all done. Okay, so now that we've set up a new category and talked a little bit about how the categories work, let's get down to the different ways to get your costs into FreeAgent. There are three main ways of doing this, which are explaining your bank transactions, entering bills received from your suppliers, and entering out-of-pocket expenses. We'll look at each of these in more detail over the course of the webinar. On a typical day, there will be various transactions going out of the business bank account or business credit card account. Just to name a few, they could be from a debit or credit card being used to purchase something for the business, an online payment you've made to a supplier to settle a bill that's due, or even possibly some direct debit payments for your utilities. These are all costs that need to be reflected in your accounting records in FreeAgent. So let's have a look at what we do in FreeAgent for those transactions. Let's first go to the banking section by navigating to Banking and Bank Accounts. Just as a brief overview, in banking, FreeAgent has some great time-saving capabilities to help you keep your business finances on track. In this bank account summary, you'll see your money at a glance, along with a list of any accounts you might have set up. You're able to create as many bank or credit card accounts in FreeAgent as you have in real life by selecting Add New Account at the top right here. Your FreeAgent bank account should be used to mirror your actual bank accounts in order to keep your data as accurate as possible. You can add transactions manually, upload them through electronic statements, or our favourite option, you can enable a bank feed. Bank feeds use open banking technology to provide a secure and reliable connection between your FreeAgent account and your bank. Instead of downloading and uploading electronic statements, once a bank feed's been enabled, your bank transactions will be pulled into FreeAgent automatically through the bank feed. And you can also set up some bank feeds for most credit card accounts too. So every transaction that's taken place in your business bank account or credit card accounts should then be in FreeAgent, and all you would need to do is tell the system what the transactions relate to. And this is what we call explaining a bank transaction. You can explain certain items in bulk like this if there are multiple transactions that you would like to explain to the same category. You can also select a full page like this if you need to. The type and category options then show here on the right-hand side. You can also explain transactions individually, which is what I'll talk through just now. Once you select the description of a transaction to explain, FreeAgent will ask you to provide some more information about it. As we're talking about costs, you'll be able to explain a money out transaction in the bank or credit card account to an accounting category by selecting the type as payment. The next option is to select the correct VAT rate or possibly pop in the amount of VAT for that transaction. FreeAgent is suggesting auto to make it a little easier for you. This just means that the rate applied to that transaction is the rate of VAT that's been set up for that category. For example, like we chose the standard VAT rate when we were creating our new category. If you need to select a different rate of VAT for a specific transaction, you can just select it from the drop-down, and any rate selected would override the auto VAT rate for that category. I'm going to leave this one as auto as it's the standard VAT that will apply to this one. We're often asked why there's an option to select the VAT rate or amount when a business is not VAT registered. Just to explain, the option is available to record the amount of VAT paid, regardless of whether a business is VAT registered and can claim this VAT back or not. This is so that if the business does become registered for VAT further down the line, FreeAgent can help to calculate some pre-registration expenses. But don't worry, if the business is not registered for VAT, the correct cost will be reflected in your FreeAgent account. The next step is to select your category. Here, you'll then be able to select the category for the particular transaction you're explaining, we'll use our newly created category for test admin expense here. Now, there may be some costs that you could allocate to more than one category. For example, your FreeAgent subscription payment could be allocated to computer software or possibly subscriptions. We'd suggest that either would be acceptable as the categories make sense, but allocating that cost to motor expenses probably wouldn't be quite right. Whilst we can't say which you should choose, as your accountant is best placed to help keep you right there, if you are unsure which category to use for a particular transaction, click on our knowledge base link here and we'll try to point you in the right direction. You'll see here that you can also add an attachment to your bank transactions. This is just an option to help you keep track of your receipts for purchases digitally for safekeeping. I'll touch on this again a bit later. And we will explain this transaction. And let's also explain some direct debit transactions for electricity costs as well. When explaining transactions which have similar descriptions, what you may find is FreeAgent prompting you to explain all of those transactions to the same category. This is just another feature to try and help make explaining your bank transactions easier. We can see this happening here for the direct debit transactions, as the descriptions are all the same, and there's a blue link here that advises you to select all matching transactions. When you select this, you can see that all the transactions with this description are shown and selected for bulk explaining. You can then explain all of the transactions just over on the panel here. Explaining your bank transactions and making sure that your FreeAgent bank account mirrors your actual bank account and reconciles is an essential part of keeping your accounts up to date. To summarise this method of recording your costs, if you pay for a business cost using your business bank account or business credit card account, all you need to do in FreeAgent is explain the transaction to confirm what the cost is. In FreeAgent, we try to help even further with explaining your bank transactions with a FreeAgent feature called Guess, which makes suggestions of payment allocations, allowing for the ease of simply hitting a button to approve and explain those transactions. If enabled, along with the bank feed, all you would need to do is click onto the For Approval tab at the top here, and you will see these guessed transactions. You can cast an eye over the category that Guess has allocated to them. And if happy, you can bulk select those transactions and approve them all to the right-hand side, just like you do when bulk explaining transactions. Once you've explained and approved some bank transactions, telling FreeAgent what the transactions are for, this will then update in your accounting reports, which I'll go over in a bit more detail later in the webinar. So that's what you would do if something was paid for out of a business bank account or credit card account. But if you've bought something and not yet paid for it, this cost would be entered as a bill. Bills are entered for costs that your business has incurred that aren't going to be paid for straight away. For example, when a supplier provides payment terms of 30 days. Some people call bills supplier invoices, but we've tried to keep this simple by calling it bills in FreeAgent. So yep, we would go to the Bills tab at the top here to enter any invoices you've received from your suppliers. This will then allow you to keep track of what is owed out in payment of your bills. From within this section, we would click on to Add New Bill at the top right here, which will then allow us to enter the bill details. You would click to select the supplier from here, or if you haven't already set up the supplier in FreeAgent, you can first create the contact by selecting or Add New Contact, and then you can enter the name of your supplier as needed. You can pop in the bill reference number here, and you would usually find this on the invoice provided by your supplier. You can pop in the date of the bill here. For businesses that are VAT registered and on the standard basis for calculating VAT, this bill date is what is used as your tax point and is what will be used to populate the VAT return in FreeAgent. The due on date must also be added, which, as I'm sure you've guessed, is when the bill is due to be paid. FreeAgent will apply 30 days from the date on the bill and work out the due date for you. But if this isn't correct, you can override it using the calendar option here. Entering this date into FreeAgent is what allows the bill to form part of your cash flow prediction. You can then select the relevant currency from here. And then you have the option to create the bill either using including or excluding VAT, depending on what's easiest for you from the bill supplied. I'll just leave this as including VAT for now. The hire purchase option would be selected if you are purchasing a large item on hire purchase, and usually this is for a capital asset. We're not covering capital assets in this webinar, but if you'd like to know more about them, you'll find some helpful articles on capital assets and hire purchase in our knowledge base. In the comments box, you might want to add a bit more on what the bill was for, just for your own record-keeping purposes. Now, onto the bill contents section, which is where you can enter the details of the bill. You can select if the costs on the bill are all to go to one accounting category, or if there are items to go to various categories, you would select to add multiple items. For ease, we'll just add a single item for now. Next, you would choose your accounting category. For just now, I'm going to select materials, which sits under the cost of sales. We'll have a look at some reports later on, so you'll be able to see where all the chosen categories we've selected will sit. Pop in the price here, which I'll pop in as £120, which is including VAT, and I'll select the VAT rate as 20%. There's an option to link a bill to a project, which is if you want to monitor expenditure for a specific project or piece of work, or if you wish to rebill the costs to a customer. Linking the bill to the project allows you to pull the cost to the sales invoice for your customer automatically. If this was a bill for the same items and amount that you receive regularly, you can select for this cost to recur and choose the frequency for when it will recur. The bills will then be created automatically for you in your FreeAgent account. It's also possible to attach an electronic copy of your bill or receipt, just like you can when explaining a bank transaction. When you select Save and Review, this takes us on to the next screen where we can see all of the bill details we just entered. Here you can see the dates that we've entered, check the VAT is correct, and that's it, the bill's created. What you will see here is the option to add a bill item. Now this is the option to allow you to add further costs to different categories on the one bill. So if you've purchased multiple things from the same supplier that are going to different categories. Now that this has been created, the amount of the bill has populated in your accounting categories in FreeAgent. You can now see this cost on the profit and loss report. As the bill has not yet been paid, this is where you may also find the cash flow functionality particularly useful in FreeAgent to keep an eye on when bills are due for payment and the impact that this will have on the cash flow of the business. And I'll show you this just shortly. Just to note, you'll also get reminded about any overdue bills as part of the weekly Monday motivated email that you receive from FreeAgent. When the bill is paid from the business bank account and the transaction is brought into your FreeAgent account, you would explain this as a type bill payment and select the bill from the drop-down list. We would not choose the type as payment like we did for the earlier bank transactions, as you need to match the bank transaction up to the bill. A common mistake is to choose the accounting category when explaining a transaction relating to a bill. This results in the cost being reflected twice, once by the bill and again by the bank transaction, as they're both going to the accounting category. This is why it's really important to explain the payment of your bills as a type bill payment. Once the bank transaction has been explained, the bill would then no longer show as overdue in your FreeAgent account or as predicted on the cash flow projection as it's been paid. And that's it, that's bills. And the other way to get your costs into FreeAgent is by entering out-of-pocket expenses. You would use the expenses section in FreeAgent for anything that you or an employee has paid for personally, not out of the business bank account, but using your own personal funds. FreeAgent will help you to keep track of those expenses, showing the cost in your accounting records, and also showing you the amount that your business owes back to yourself or your employees. To enter out-of-pocket expenses, you would go to the My Money tab here and select Expenses. If you're a sole trader and the only user on your account, you'll see this tab headed as Expenses instead. If you have users added to your account as employees, this will enable the payroll feature and you will then see the My Money heading. To add your out-of-pocket expense, click on Add New at the top right. You will see here the option to select Expense or Mileage Claim. We'll select Expense for now, and I'll show you adding a mileage claim later on. The first thing you'll see when adding a new expense is the option to add an attachment. So you may want to add a copy of the receipt that you obtained when purchasing the business item. You can select to add a file from your computer, or if you've used the Capture for Later feature on our mobile app to store images of receipts in the Files area of your FreeAgent account, you can select Choose from Saved Files. The FreeAgent mobile app is available on iOS and Android and has been designed as a companion app to the desktop version. This allows you to keep on top of your daily admin whilst out and about, including explaining your bank transactions and also adding bills and expenses. When you use this feature, you're able to use the image taken to create an out-of-pocket expense using our auto extract functionality. And this is taken directly from the image in your files area. You can find some further details on how this works in our knowledge base. And let me go through the steps now on how to add an expense. You would first select the claimant, and this is the person who's paid for the cost. You can then select the type. You would leave this as payment. The type refund would only be used if you'd received a refund of an expense that has been previously entered. Next, you would select which accounting category is right for this expense. For example, if you'd purchased some stationery for the business, you might want to select the stationery category. You can enter the date that the item was purchased, along with the relevant currency the item was purchased in. Now, you might see here that there's a lot of currencies that you can create expenses for in FreeAgent, and also bills. When it comes to recording those costs in your account, FreeAgent will automatically convert the currency to British pounds for you using the rates from xe.com. You can then enter in the total value of the expense paid for and select the appropriate rate of VAT, which again would help in populating your VAT returns if you're VAT registered. You'll then need to pop in a description for the expense. And as with the bill we entered, you get the option to select if you would like to link this expense to a project, or if you would like the expense to recur. Once all the details are entered, you can then select Create New Expense. And that's the expense created. You can see it just here. And you'll see it's got the date, the description, which category it's gone to, and how much was spent. You'll also see down the right-hand side here a running balance of how much is owed to this employee. When the business repays the individual for the expenses, this will be brought into the bank account in FreeAgent, and you would explain this as type money paid to user, and the category would be selected as expense payment. We've done this for this transaction here on the 1st of September, and what you'll see is it shows in the repaid column, reducing the amount that is owed back to that individual. If you work from home, you may be able to claim a portion of your household running costs as business expenses. You'll need to work out which portion of each applicable household running cost is considered a business expense, and the proportion will vary depending on your business and how you use your home. We have some useful information on our website on calculating use of home. If you're unsure on how much you can claim, your accountant is the best person to advise you on this. Once you know how much you're allowed to claim, let's say, for example, £100, you can enter the amount used in your accounting records as an out-of-pocket expense. There's an accounting category already set up, handily called Use of Home. Once created, this will again show under the My Money Expenses page, showing that this is owed back to you. If you travel on business in your own car, and that's not a company car, you would record this as a mileage claim in FreeAgent. FreeAgent will then apply the HMRC approved mileage rate depending on the type of vehicle you've travelled in. You can create the mileage claim as you do a new out-of-pocket expense by navigating to the My Money Expenses page, and this time selecting Mileage Claim after you've clicked Add New to the top right-hand side. Again, the first option you have here is to add an attachment, which is optional. You can then select who's claiming the mileage, the date on which they travelled, and the number of miles they travelled. You can also add a description in here, and let's just say it was a journey to a client meeting. There are then a few different options, as claiming mileage does have some differences depending on which vehicle was used. You can select from the drop-down list here whether the journey was travelled in a car, or on a motorcycle or a bicycle. For the reclaiming mileage section, there are two options. One is to select the mileage rate will be reclaimed from the business at the approved mileage allowance payment rate. Now, this rate is dependent on the method of travel that you selected above. Taking a car for an example, you're allowed to reclaim at 45 pence per mile, as that's set by HMRC. Now, this is only for the first 10,000 miles travelled within the tax year, and it then reduces to 25p per mile. Don't worry though, you won't have to keep track of when you reach this limit. FreeAgent will automatically adjust this rate for you. The other option you have here is to not reclaim the mileage from the business at all, but just rebill this to a customer as part of a project. If you're VAT registered, you also have the option to reclaim the VAT on the mileage travelled, but HMRC do stipulate that you need to have a VAT receipt for the fuel used for this journey. If you're unsure on whether the VAT can be reclaimed, please do check with your accountant. As with other costs, you have the option to rebill the mileage to a project and also set up the recurring mileage costs. This could be useful if you're making the same journey every month to the same customer. Once created, you'll then see the mileage noted under the My Money Expenses page with your other out-of-pocket expenses. Some businesses hold a small amount of cash to be used for small business purchases. And to deal with cash, we would suggest that you can create a bank account in FreeAgent called Petty Cash, which we have done here. This would be a dummy bank account that effectively represents your cash tin. When the initial sum was drawn out of the business bank account to put into the cash tin, this would be explained in your business bank account as a type transfer to another account and select the new Petty Cash bank account from the drop-down. Then, when a small purchase has been made using cash from the tin, you'd reflect this in FreeAgent by creating a manual bank transaction. To do this, you would navigate into the Petty Cash account in the banking area, select More and Add Transaction. This will allow you to enter the details of the purchase, so you would select Type Payment to show that it was amount of money paid out, select the date the payment was made, and add the amount. You can then select the category, so we'll say this was for some stamps, so we'll leave it as postage, and pop in a description of what the transaction was. Once we create that transaction, you'll see it has reduced the overall amount of cash left in the tin. Adding the transactions in manually will include the cost in your accounting categories on the reports generated in your accounts, just as the costs are reflected by all of the other methods we've discussed today. So now that we've entered costs into FreeAgent, let's have a look at some reporting. Let's go to our profit and loss report, which you will find under Accounting and Reports and Profit and Loss. Here you'll see the cost that we've added during the webinar to each of the relevant categories selected. So we've got the test admin expense category that we selected when explaining our bank transaction, the cost that we've added for materials via the bill, the stationery for out-of-pocket expenses, and the use of home also, and the mileage is included under the travel category. For a further tip, if you were to select any of the categories listed here, you'll be taken to your Show Transactions report, which details every cost allocated to that category, no matter if it was a bank transaction, bill, or an expense. This is a great way of checking everything's been explained correctly. As the accounting reports are updated in real time in FreeAgent, this also allows for your tax returns to be updated in real time too. This includes your self-assessment and corporation tax returns. This allows you to see throughout the year what your estimated tax bill may be, to hopefully help with any unexpected costs at the end of the year. You can view the returns at any time by selecting the Taxes tab at the top. Another report that you might find useful is the Spending Categories report, which you can also find under Accounting Reports. This report shows you where you're spending your money and includes your categorised bills, expenses and bank transactions. If your business is registered for VAT, the figures shown on the report will be exclusive of VAT. Let's also take a quick look at your overview screen. You'll see lots of widgets on the overview screen here, and they're all designed to help give you an overview of useful information about your business. Down here, you'll be able to see a snapshot of your outstanding bills, a list of the expenses and mileage claims added in the last 30 days. Your tax timeline panel here is a calendar overview of the important tax dates and payments for you and your business. And here you can keep an eye on any important upcoming deadlines. You can also view a snapshot of the profit and loss report here, or click through to the full report using the link here. We've mentioned cash flow a few times in this webinar, so let's now take a look at the cash flow prediction in a bit more detail. You can find this under Banking and Cash Flow. Here, FreeAgent's cash flow feature calculates the money coming in and going out of your business across a 90-day window to provide a measure of business health and to show your projected future balance. It uses data from other areas of your account, such as your bank accounts, invoices, bills, VAT returns, and even payroll, to perform the calculation. You can customise the data that FreeAgent displays in cash flow to report, just to optimise this for your reporting needs. You'll see that the bill we entered earlier is listed here, as it's due for payment in the next 30 days. The cash flow is a great feature for ensuring that you've got enough money in the bank to cover any bills due. And that's it. We've come to the end of our webinar today, and I hope you find this really helpful in understanding how to include your costs in FreeAgent and by the right method. I hope we've also helped to highlight how you can view your costs in your accounting reports once they've been added in FreeAgent, and relieve some stress in knowing that once all the costs have been included, you're able to view your estimated tax bills in real time. Now, just to finish up, let me show you just a few ways you can get help if you're unsure about anything in FreeAgent. If you run into any issues or have any specific questions about your data in FreeAgent, just click on the help button, which you can find down here on the right. And Ruby the robot will either suggest some answers from our knowledge base or pass you on to our support team. So if I pop in enter bill, you'll see that Ruby will pop up with some knowledge base articles that hopefully will help. And if not, you'll be given the option to get in touch with our support team. And this will either be by live chat if it's during office hours, or you'll be given the option to leave a message. We offer live chat 9 AM till 5 PM, Monday to Thursday, and 9 AM till 4 PM on a Friday. In those same hours, you can also phone our support team directly or get in touch via email. You can find our phone number and email address listed on the Contact Us page of our website. You may be asked for a support code when contacting us, and this code is used as a security step when contacting our support accountants and allows us access to your account. This can be found by navigating to your company name and then Settings, and select Support Access from the My Company section. You would select Grant Access to the FreeAgent Technical Support Access section and select Save Changes. A unique 8-digit code will then pop up here on the right-hand side. The other way to access this generated code is if it's available, no matter what screen you're on, is by scrolling to the very bottom and selecting Support Access from the footer. Another fantastic resource that we've mentioned throughout this webinar is our knowledge base, which is full of visual step-by-step guides and easy to follow videos. You can always find a link at the bottom of the page beside that support access option. You can type your problem into the search bar here, or you've got the option to browse by section. I hope this webinar has been helpful in giving you more confidence on counting your costs in FreeAgent. Thanks so much for joining us today, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you have any questions.